Hi guys, Brian here from Sydney Back Pain Program. So in this video we're going to look at fairly common scenario for people who've got back issues, especially if they want to be active and get strong, maybe train in the gym, and kind of enjoy training in the gym again. What happens with quite a lot of people is be in the gym training well, trying to get stronger or trying to get bigger or whatever your training goal is. They injure the back. And obviously it will flare up, so first instinct is to rest it and let it sort of settle down. Eventually the pain goes away, back feels pretty good. Okay, let's go back into the gym. A couple weeks of hard training in the gym, again, aggravate the back, pain flares up, take another couple of weeks off of rest, let it settle down, come back into the gym, re-aggravate the back, and so on and so on and so on. So what we'll look at today is we're going to look at why that may be happening. Specifically, we're going to look at what that might be happening with a squat technique. As we know, the definition of insanity is to continuously do the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. So what happens more often than not with people in the gym is they've got faulty technique patterns that are putting the back at risk, which is why they'll get those couple of weeks of training and then it'll all start to break down again. So what we'll do, look at this video, we'll give you some different options and different ways to think about maybe doing a squat pattern. But what we're going to do is we'll specifically look at how I fixed my squat pattern, because as with anything with back pain, it depends scenario. But I'll show you how I fixed my squat pattern, what was wrong with it before, why my back used to get flared up, and how I've managed to learn a slightly different technique which suits me, that lets me train pain-free and also get the back stronger. Which may or may not apply to your situation, but it may at least give you some ideas and maybe give you a sort of, a slightly different approach to how you might want to just think about tweaking your squat technique, so that you can obviously, lift heavy, lift well, and not put yourself at risk of a back injury. Okay, so my back injury, I had bulges at L3, L4, L4, L5, and then L5, S1, had a herniation, actually lost quite a bit of my disc height. So for me, the bulges and the herniations were coming out to the rear of my spine, so this way. So for me, when I did some testing, I found out that I'm very flexion intolerant. That's, put my spine in a rounded position, either for long periods or obviously under a heavy barbell, for me is just asking for trouble. So what I've got to do for my training is I need to make sure that every time I, squat, deadlift, press, get up and off the bench, up and off the floor, I make sure that I minimize any of this movement so that I don't aggravate the back and I don't start off that injury process. So we'll look at what my squat used to look like and then we'll look at how I sort of changed it to make it a bit more back sparing and keep myself out of trouble. So we'll look at my how I used to squat originally, which would keep aggravating my back, and I'll look at it and see if it gives us some clues as to why my back has been injured. So bear in mind that for my injury I was very flexion intolerant, so any sort of position like that where I was rounding my spine is going to start off the injury process for me, obviously, basically annoy the back. So my original squat would be what most people would call an average sort of back squat in the gym, what everyone looks at as for sort of textbook technique, is actually what we call a high bar position barbell back squat, which I believe originally comes from Olympic style lifting, but for some reason it's the kind of the go-to technique that everyone seems to use for squats. So I'd have the bar set up high enough so I was going to get it on top of my traps, so very top of my back, base of my neck. I'd come in, get myself centered on the bar, I'd have the weight on my traps. Nice tall position, chest is up, I'd come back, and I'd organise my feet so roughly sort of hip width to shoulder width apart, like that. And then watch my technique and see if you can see where it starts to become an issue for my back. So I'm trying to keep a nice tall position, got a little bit of brace on, and as I come down, bending through my knees, I'm trying to get the maximum amount of depth, ass to grass style. I come down, and then I push back up the hole, like that. Again, I'll just show it one more time. Chest is up, come down through my knees, pushing out, and then I come up. So obviously we can see there is that with that technique, if I try and get what we call ass to grass or ATG style, as in getting the maximum amount of range of motion out of it, you can see at the bottom of the movement, what happens is that I get to probably 3/4 of the way, and then all of a sudden, my back's nice and straight. It starts to curl in, sort of as my tail, almost my tail tucks underneath me, and you can see it puts me in that flex position. And where it's flexing is where my injuries are, so L3, L4, L4, L5, and L5, S1. Now, obviously, there is a school of thought that says that, if your back wasn't supposed to flex like that, it wouldn't be able to do it in the first place. True, but there's a big difference between your body letting you, or it being designed to flex with body weight versus, imagine how much of a problem that's going to be. This is an empty bar. If that bar had 100 plus kilos on it, imagine the amount of force and compression going through my discs at the bottom of that movement. And as I come out, the first thing I need to do is kind of straighten my spine out, and then I'm in a position I can drive through my legs. So you can see why, if you were doing years and years of this, that's what's going to start to wear out those discs, because those discs are pretty tough, but they can only take so much. Some people are blessed with, spinal structure, they've got way more resilient discs. Most people not so much. But you can see if you were doing this a couple of times a week for a couple of years, you're going to wear down those discs and start to aggravate them, cause bulges and cause herniations. So this is one of the big bugbears where everyone needs to squat exactly the same way. Not true at all. You need to squat based on your body mechanics and how your body is put together. Okay, so let's have a look at how I've changed my squat technique to obviously be a bit more safer for my back. So you notice, first of all, I've actually put the J-hooks one notch lower. The reason is for that is I'm going to change from what we call the high bar position to what we call a low bar position. So instead of the weight being sat on my traps up here, it's actually going to be a bit lower. It's going to be sat on my rear delt, so it's about 3 or 4 inches lower down on the back. What that does is it changes the bar path slightly in relation to my center of gravity, so that I can make the squat a more hip dominant movement. So it affords me the ability to push my hips back a bit more, have my legs a little bit wider, and that gives me the room in the hips then for movement that I can get reasonably low without ever putting that back at risk. So let's have a look at what that technique looks like now. So anyone who's familiar with sort of how powerlifters do their squats, it's obviously pretty much what they use as their basis for their squat movement. So we come in, same as we did before. So instead of being high bar position up here, I come a lot lower, I squeeze my shoulder blades together a lot more, and it makes a little shelf right where my rear delts are. And then from there, unrack. Chest is tall. I go a lot wider on my legs, turn my toes out a little bit more. Air in, make a brace. And again, air in, brace. There we go. So obviously, I'm not trying to get ass to grass in that movement, but I can at least get to parallel. And the determining factor for me in that is that I can feel the weight's in my hips, it's not in my lower back, which is where I need it to be. It's strong in the hips, not in the back.